Hey everybody, and thank you so much for watching. This is part one of three videos that I'm making to help explain how to connect chords and scales together. I found that most all of us, despite what music or style of guitar playing we play, our end and far-reaching goal is to have creative freedom over our instrument. Creative freedom over our instrument to me means being able to access choices with balance and control. So being able to play what we want to play when we want to play it and have control over how we play it. One of the things that I think is super helpful in this journey is understanding major scale theory. And to me, this information that I'm going to break down in these three videos helped me get to that place, or get closer to that place. I'm still working on it. The first thing that I want to break down in this first video, we're going to talk about the major scale and how it's created and why it is the way it is. The second video is going to be about harmonizing the scale. And the third video is going to be about the types of chords we get when we harmonize the scale. So with that being said, let's get into it. I'm going to give you the answer first, and then I'm going to explain. The first thing that you have to understand is that a scale, and all scales, doesn't matter what kind of scale they are, all scales are just a recipe of whole steps and half steps. And what I mean by that is it's a specific combination of these two kinds of steps that are fundamental. They're like the DNA of music. Whole steps and half steps. They're the two basic intervals that we usually start learning about when we first start learning about music theory. So what is a whole step and what is a half step? Let's talk about that. So right here I have just an arbitrary string. Imagine it as any string you like. It could be your low E string or your B string, whichever one. But it will do to demonstrate what a whole step and half step is. So a whole step is any two frets on your guitar. If you're on your first fret and you go to your third fret, you've skipped two. That's a whole step. If you're on your fifth fret and you move down to your third fret, it's that same distance backwards. That's also a whole step. Any two frets is a whole step. A half step is exactly half that same distance. So if I am playing on one fret and I move up to the very next adjacent fret, I've moved one half step. And the same thing goes if I move backwards. If I'm on any fret and I move down one fret, so I'm on the fifth fret and move down to the fourth, I've moved down my guitar string one half step. So that's what a whole step and a half step are. Now, like I said, a major scale is just a recipe, just a unique combination of these two types of steps. The major scale is just a group of notes separated by two whole steps, one half step, three whole steps, one half step. So if I start on the note C and I go up one whole step, and then another whole step, then a half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, I get to my last note, and then a half step will bring me back to the note I started on, one octave above. Two whole steps, one half step. Three whole steps, one half step is the recipe for a major scale. Now, a couple of points about this. What this means is I'm going to pick a starting note. It could be any note on your instrument, on the piano, guitar, trumpet, it doesn't matter. If you can play a whole step and a half step on your instrument, whichever one it is, and you follow like a connect the dots pattern, this many steps, you're going to create a major scale in the key of the note you started on. So, for the sake of this example, I started on the note C, I followed this pattern, and these are the 7 notes that I will get by moving through this pattern. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B are the 7 different notes that are in the key of C major, because those are the notes you will get moving these steps away from C. But now that you've seen what it looks like over here, I want to show you what it looks like on an actual string, because that's the important part. Looking at this on paper is fine, but you have to play it. So what we're about to do right now is a great thing to go ahead and take your guitar and practice. because what you need to do is integrate and learn this pattern as it applies to your instrument. So if you play the piano, play a whole step from one note and then another whole step, a half, and move through practicing a major scale just by picking different starting points. Let's look at it from the perspective of just a string. This could be a C, it could be an F. I don't want you to think of it necessarily from the perspective of notes, though. Even though that's what this is more about the shape it creates on your guitar. So if I start here, this is the first note. I move a whole step. This is going to bring me to, if we were to call this my first fret, this would bring me to my third fret. This would be my second note. So not to confuse that these aren't the frets, these are the number of notes that I'm going to get that are going to belong to the key of the note I started on. This is my root, this is my starting note. So a whole step. I'm going to go another whole step from here. This is going to be my third note. I'm going to go a half step now. This is going to get me my fourth note. An important distinction to make when you're playing this on your guitar is to see that the first three are separated by whole steps, but between third and four is a half step. This is an important sound, playing these four notes on your guitar. If you have your guitar right now and you play bum, 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 that fourth note, that's like the first four notes of Lean on Me. This is an iconic sound of the major scale. Going up a whole step from the fourth note looks like this. This is going to give me my fifth note. I'm going to go up another whole step. That's going to give me my sixth. Another whole step. That's going to give me my seventh. I'm going to add one more fret here because this is my octave. This is the same note as my first, just an octave higher. So if this was my first fret of my E string, then this is taking me F to G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F, the 11th fret of my guitar. Or excuse me, the 13th fret of my guitar. So we don't normally play major scales this way. We normally play them as a closed shape. In the closed shape, we could look down, I want to translate what this looks like on one string to an actual closed shape. So if we're going to pick C as our starting note, now instead of it being arbitrary, I'm going to actually translate this information to a closed shape on the guitar. And what we'll get is an actual major scale pattern that you can play in one position on your guitar. So if you start on the 8th fret of your low E string and go up a whole step to get your second note, this is how far away it would be on the 10th fret of your E string. Now instead of moving up the string like we did up here, you're going to have to go over to your A string, and a whole step when you cross adjacent strings looks like this. You're going to go from your 10th fret to your 7th right here. That's what a whole step looks like when you're moving across your string. It's a totally different shape. It's easier to see a whole step on one string than it is to play it across. But once you get the hang of it, it's nice. So this is my first three notes. Boom, boom, boom. Now I'm going to go my half step. This is going to be my fourth note. Then I'm going to go my whole step. So now I'm going from my 8th fret up to the 10th fret again. This is going to be my 5th fret, or excuse me, my 5th note. Another whole step to get to my 6th. Another whole step to get to my 7th. And then a half step to get to my 8th. And you might recognize this shape. This is a classic shape from the Cage system. This is like the beginning of the E form. The A form looks like this if it's just moved over to the A string. But this is what a major scale, one octave of the major scale looks like. And you can see we followed the same whole step, half step pattern that we did on one string over in a closed shape. So the takeaway is that a major scale is just a recipe of whole steps and half steps. You combine these to create different scales. The one we're talking about in this series is the major scale because, like I said, it has an important part. It plays a very important role in music theory as kind of a relative place. A lot of other things get compared back to the scale. The other takeaway is that whatever note you start this whole step, half step pattern on is the key center, the tonal center of the scale you are playing. This is how you know what key you're in. You can trace back parts of the scale. If you're noodling around this thing, you can tell that you're playing a major scale pattern based from this as a starting point. This note is the tonal center of all these other notes that you get from that whole step, half step pattern. And the third point is that you can combine these notes to create chords, and that's what we're going to talk about in the next video. You guys, thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what you think, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.